What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So this video today is going to be about Pelican Bay. Pelican Bay has a mystique about it. It's like a mythological place in California. I know a lot of people in other states still think San Quentin and Folsom, because they don't even know the difference between Old Folsom and New Folsom. A lot of people in these other states think San Quentin and Folsom are the heavy prisons. Some people, especially, if you've seen Training Day and there's certain movies, they talk about, I'm going to send your ass to Pelican Bay and this and that, right? Then you had in the media them talking about in California, Pelican Bay State Prison houses the worst of the worst. When you hit that place, you've hit the end of the road and all this stuff, right? I've been there. I was in Pelican Bay 4 different times, right? Both on the shoe, seaside only, and I was briefly on A Yard, and I was on B facility twice. So I'm going to give you my impressions of it. And you guys know I don't write anything down, so I'm just going to speak and let's just see where this goes. So I did a video in my past, still on the channel, talking about my very first time to Pelican Bay. I had went to the shoe from New Folsom. I was 21 years old. My cellmate was 31 years old. And back then, you could, when you got there, if you wanted to cell up with somebody on the bus, whoever's name they called first, like if they called my name, when I stand up, that guy that I want to cell up with stands up with me. They'll ask him, "Are you selling up?" Yeah. And they'll ask me, "You want that to be your cellie?" Yeah. We exit the bus together, go into the shoe, and they do their thing, right? And that's why Pelican Bay was different, because if you ran your mouth somewhere and then you wound up transferring on the bus with somebody that you ran your mouth on or you had an issue with, guess what? You can't hide. You can't run. Because he's going to let you know, like, hey, we're going to sell up. So that's what we did. Me and another dude, we had said on the bus, like, hey, Holmes, you want to sell up? Yeah. All right, cool. So they called his name. I stood up. We went in. And again, I was 21 years old, right? He was 31. And let me preface this with this. I remember being in the California Youth Authority in Paso Robles in, it was probably around 91 when we're having a conversation. We're out there playing handball and Pelican Bay popped up. Hey, Holmes, you about to hear about Pelican Bay? We're like, what the fuck is that? And they're like, oh, Holmes, it's this new prison. And I don't know, one of the homies' dad or his uncle or somebody was there. And he was like, yeah, I got some whatever there and whoever there. Excuse me. And he's like, and I'm like, we all knew we were going to prison. We were that type of people, right? Those type of idiots. But I remember the whole mythology in the beginning. Remember, this is about 91. Pelican Bay opened in 1989. And then we're saying, oh man, that fucking prison right there, it's a hole. And so when you want to go to yard, a door opens in the back of your cell and you step into another cell and that's your yard. When you want to shower, the shower comes to your cell. Your letters get put on a screen. You don't get to touch them. And, it was just all this stuff, right? And you would think having that conversation, I was 16 years old. You would think having that conversation, we would have been like, fuck, homie, I don't ever want to be there. Nah, we were like, See you there, homie. See you there. And I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see any of those guys there. I was there though, right? Now, getting back to the story. Getting there my first time. My Sally's 10 years older than me. We go in, you got to do the whole stripping out, all this stuff, and, picture taking, all the bullshit. And sit up in the, wherever. Sometimes it's in visiting, sometimes it's in the law library. They sit you guys in till they find a cell for you, right? Then you get moved. And back then it was, you went to C1. C1 was orientation for the SHU. After a while, they stopped doing C1 as orientation. But so they housed us in C1, right? And I remember I went in the cell. My Sally went in the cell. I uncuffed first, right? So you back up to the food port, boom. And Pelican Bay was a place where when you backed up to the food port, you stuck your hands out, right? When they uncuff, whichever hand they uncuff first, you do not bring your hand back in the cell. They'll break the other arm. They'll tell you, when I uncuff you, you grab the food port. So you have to boom. And then they uncuff the other one, and then they'll tell you, all right, go ahead. And then you bring them in. So I uncuffed first. And I'm looking at the cell, and my Sally uncuffs, right? And I'm looking at the cell. Everything's white, concrete. They're big cells. Pelican Bay is the biggest cells in the state. The SHU. And it was cold. And something told me to turn around. And I turn around and I look at my Sally. I'm not lying, you guys. He had his hands on his hips like this, and he's like this looking. He goes, Pelican Bay. I said, man, shut up. Like, what are you doing, eh? Mind you, he's 10 years older than me, and obviously he is extremely impressed by it. Pelican Bay was, it's been shut down now. They let all the legends out. It's a different place. But I'll tell you right now, I don't know if other state prison systems have something like Pelican Bay. I don't think they do, and this isn't a slight at other states. I don't want people thinking that. But California is known for its Big Four organizations, right? And they were housed there. If you were found to be a member of an organized crime faction, you were sent there. And Pelican Bay became the Harvard, the MIT, the Princeton, the Yale, like whatever university, Oxford, whatever university that people go to get the highest level of education, Pelican Bay was at for criminality, for criminals. You were going to learn whatever you sought to learn, whatever you were capable of absorbing, because you were around the minds that created it, right? So that was a lot of the aura and the mystique of it, right? The shower didn't come to your cell, bro. The yard was another cell, probably about size of two of the Pelican Bay cells, maybe three. Ugly, little small yard. And only if you had a cellie, you might go out with him, but normally you don't. I mean, you're in a cell with him 22 and a half hours a day. You get an hour and a half on the yard, so one day you go, the next day he goes, and you break it up. If you happen to get lucky, let me tell you this. Pelican Bay back then rained 9 months out of the year. No lie. It is in the middle of the redwood forest in Northern California. I think it's less than 10 miles away from the Oregon border. So it has a lot of the Oregon type weather. Real rainy, gloomy, and it fits. It fits the feel. Just an ugly place, right? And I remember when I first got there, and I just kept hearing water pouring. And I'd been there about 3 days, man. And finally I said, hey, Espesa Natira. There in Pelican Bay, by the way, it is extremely, extremely quiet. Not the cops don't enforce that. The convicts do. It's so quiet that if you have to speak to your cellie, you're gonna whisper, and you're gonna want to sit very close to him and whisper it, unless you're okay with everybody in the pod hearing you, because they will. There's no way I could talk in this voice to my cellie and think nobody's gonna hear. The pod next to us might hear me with this voice, right? So I was like, hey, Spensa Natira. I said, hey, these huras never shut the shower off? And it was dead quiet. And my neighbor, he asked, what shower? I said, the one with the damn water running. Everybody starts laughing. They go, man, that's rain. It never stops raining here. And the yard has like a plexiglass cover, right? And there's a little opening in it cut out for the camera to look down on you. You're on camera when you go to the yard. So the water was piling up on the plexiglass and then pouring through and hitting the concrete. So that's what I was listening to. I remember when we left after orientation in C1, we were moved to C4. We were in C4 and it was so quiet in that pod. Luckily I was never in another pod where this occurred. But it was so quiet that in the day room, there's like those little pipes running that hold electrical wires, right? You could hear the electricity that was running in that pipe. And I remember thinking, that could drive a motherfucker crazy. You can't have speakers in your TV. You don't have a radio, right? There's no locker. It's a concrete tomb. Pelican Bay is where some people were sent to die. Times have changed now. They stopped the indeterminate shoe. There used to be such a thing as an indeterminate shoe where you went there, they slammed you down, and you were going to die in themselves. It was basically a death penalty. It was against the law. You were never going to be released. You know, California has life sentences. Life sentences mean, you know, you have 20 to life. You have a possibility of parole. Life without the possibility is different. Back then, California didn't recognize that. It was, if you had life without parole. Some laws changed later that have let thousands of us out, but that's a different story. After I was done with my shoot term, I went out to a B facility, right? And I've spoken about how in Pelican Bay, every inch of the yard is on camera. It's being recorded. So when somebody would get whacked there, somebody would get moved on, it was brutal. I can tell you that the worst stabbing I ever saw was there. And I mentioned the stabbing before. There was actually 3 incidents that day. And this was the third one where they finally said, take everybody in. And it was just prior to the February 2000 riot. Somebody had got there and he was asking too many of the wrong questions. Who's here? Who's running it? Who's got the spot? Who they working for? And it was like, nah, this Vato's asking the wrong shit. And for whatever else, he came out and they jumped on him. I just so happened to look over by the bathroom on the other side of the yard. It happened right in front of 5 Block by the bathroom, by the sinks. I just so happened to look over and I saw the first pick, and you just saw blood spray. And I was like, huh. And it was right I believe they may have said equipment recall, because I know everybody was headed towards the buildings. I know me, my Sally, and a bunch of dudes, we were in front of our building. Everybody was already starting to, maneuver that direction. And I looked and I saw it, boom. And I told my Sally had never been, this is his first level 4, and they sent him to Pelican Bay. He had started on a level 1. He was a very annoying guy. I did a video on him the day he shit in his pants. It's a hilarious story if you guys find it. But he had started on level 1, and he kept getting in these little bullshit fist fights and dumb write-ups, and worked his way up to a level 4, and he thought he was impressive, and I was just a blunt guy, and I was like, nothing about that is impressive. You didn't kill nobody. You didn't whack nobody. You just yelled at the cops. You didn't follow rules long enough to where they piled your points up, right? So when I saw what was happening, I told my Sally, like, wait, check that out. The Hudas saw it, like I said, everything's under video. So, and then where he got moved on immediately, because the cops have a bench near the bathroom area that they would post up at. So they were on it. So boom, they put the yard down right away, right? And told my Sally, look. And I remember watching my Sally's face, and he was like, whoa, fuck. And he looks at me and goes, hey, they're not going to stop. I told him, nah, we're not going to stop. And on this one, the cops had to beat them off. I mean, one, they beat off, right? They don't even sound right. One, they hit him with the baton so many times to where he broke it down. The other one had wrapped his left arm around the body. You just saw the arm just coming up and all the way down. And you can hear it. We were across the yard and you can hear it. And I remember there being an officer in front of 4 building. This was before the riot, when they made 4 building a program building. We were in 4 building. There was also A section and 3 building was also housing regulars. B and C had like J-Cats in there, right? And so we were in front of those buildings, and I remember a cop right in between 3 and 4 building standing there. And I didn't like the way, we overlooked the fact that the homie was killing this guy. Prison is prison. The cops can't stop what's going to happen, right? They're just there to put us back in the cells. Was my mentality at the time, right? So I didn't like that they were being so abusive. And so I was sitting flat on my ass like everybody else, and I'm looking and I'm getting madder and madder. I moved up to a crouching position and I looked at the cop and I said, hey, your homies like beating up my homies, huh? And a couple other homies like, oh yeah. And they started like getting a squatting position. The tower yells at us. That cop eased his way away from there. But that's how it was there, man. I don't know if it was, well, I know the fact that you had who you had in the shoe, a 5-minute walk away, had a direct impact on how people were acting on A and B facility, the 2 main yards, the 2 main lines. People had it in their mind, when you made it to the Bay, that's when you're really going to make your name, which wasn't really the case. But it was the way that people carried themselves. Any level 4 you hit, a 180, you walk on that yard and you feel death in the air. You feel hate. It's like energy. It's like electricity, not energy. It's like electricity in the air. Worst places, you feel it even more intensely. Pelican Bay, you felt it. But I will say, Pelican Bay was the most respectful place you could do time back then. I know later the shoe, when they made the short corridor, people started acting like little kids and shit. that weren't on the short corridor, especially if they were on C facility. But that's a whole story I would never even want to tell. But prior to that, man, like it didn't matter what faction you were housed with in your pod. It was all about respect. Everybody respected their adversary. Everybody was going to eat. I mentioned it before. If you didn't go to store, those that did would drop a bag off in front of your pad, regardless of what faction they were from or you were from. Education was a priority there. Not just criminal education, not just physical education, but educating your mind, reading. I think they had the biggest library out of any prison I had ever been in. But they also had ESPN and BET, and the reason why is because people were there to die. There was a time there where there were a lot of murders jumping off. That's why they started trying to single cell everybody, right? But those cells were so expensive that they wanted to double cell when they could. But one of the ugly things about Pelican Bay as well was there was a time where certain legends started developing stomach cancer. And it was rumored that something was being done to the food, because if you guys have ever seen Pelican Bay in a documentary or pictures of it or whatever, in the shoe, there's only 4 cells on the bottom, 4 cells on the top. It is very easy to stack up trays and know exactly what cell's getting what tray. But you still had to eat. Even with that in mind, where they could be poisoning the food or they're doing something to the food, you still had to eat. Pelican Bay, like I said, it was very cold. Well, it was very gloomy and it was very cold. If you happened to be in a back cell, especially on the bottom tier next to the yard door, I was in one of those cells in a couple pods, and back then there was no thermals and no beanies. We made beanies out of socks, and we would make long sleeves out of socks. Cut the bottoms, slide them around. Some dudes would even wrap toilet paper around themselves, man. It was that cold. All you had was a jumpsuit and your sock beanie and your damn sock sleeves. They were trying to deprive us of all of our senses. That's why I've said before, they were boiling all the food for a while so that we didn't have flavor. When you remove people's senses, sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of touch, when you're reducing the sound around you to try to minimize the sense of hearing, these are all things that can drive a man insane. The main line was very organized and very violent because of the cameras everywhere. Everybody knew if I do something, I'm going to get caught anyway, so I'm going to try to kill him. Even if somebody just had a check-in coming, they're going to try to kill you. You know why? Because you made them have to touch you. I guess this video is long enough, but I was just thinking today, what do I want to do today, man? And I reached out to somebody, and I see he just called, just sent a voicemail. So I will be doing an interview with this individual, sitting down, chopping it up with them. Maybe tonight we'll record it for tomorrow. I don't know. But I wanted to give you guys my firsthand experience, a little bit of it on Pelican Bay. And I want to say that I'm glad it is no longer used the way it was used in the past. I'm glad that those men that were sent there to die are now able to enjoy some freedoms in prison, those which they earn. Remember, you fuck up, they got a place for you. But I'm glad that people are now able to see their old lady and give them a kiss, see their kids or their grandkids and give them a hug, taste a soda. For those of you that think that, you know, everybody, once they get busted and they go up there, fuck them, throw away the key, be careful. You could get accused of something, convicted of it, and be totally innocent. Then you go in there and you have to be a man. And somebody might say that shit about you. So there's my video, man. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, right? I'm out.